Right, so if you've ever wondered what the difference is between scarifying your lawn and verticutting your lawn, then hopefully this video will help you today, because we're going to be explaining the purpose behind both of these processes, when they should be done, why they should be done, and how you can do them to your lawn too. But before we get into it, there's loads of videos on this channel showing you how you can renovate your entire garden, how you can lay a patio for the first time, how you can build a retaining wall using sleepers, but also there's loads of lawn care stuff too, how you can maintain and manage a weed-free lawn with a lovely colour, with lovely stripes, getting it looking absolutely boss. So that sort of stuff takes your fancy, then consider subscribing if you haven't already. But less waffling about that, let's get straight into it. So let's start off with scarifying then. Scarifying, in the simplest terms, is just a process that removes excess thatch from your lawn. And the main emphasis there is on the word excess. Thatch isn't bad. Thatch is really healthy for your lawn. During the summer, it keeps the soil nice and moist, it retains that moisture, but also as it's a store of dead material which is broken down slowly over time that helps feed your soil, which in turn helps feed the grass plants. However, there are times where thatch can build up a little bit too much, and it can be caused for a number of different reasons. One of them can be to do with overfeeding. When you feed your lawns, you're going to get excessive growth, but you're going to get excessive thatch production too. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, and that is where scarifying is going to come in handy, but it is one of the contributing factors. Another reason might be the fact that you've not scarified your lawn in a number of years, and a layer of thatch is just slowly built up over the time, too much really for the soil to be able to consume naturally itself. Often it's because the soil you've got and the biology that's knocking about in your lawn isn't really ideal to break down that thatch effectively. Because in the perfect world, which granted doesn't really exist, all thatch would be decomposed slowly by the soil, and it would just continually feed the lawn, and it would kind of negate the need to scarify. And just remember, even the best lawns at times need to be scarified to remove that excess thatch. You'll see that on a scarifier blade, they tend to be quite thick, and there tends to be just like singular blades knocking about all along it, because the idea is that that blade is meant to cut into the very top layer of soil where the thatch is, so that it can kind of scrape or scoop out any of the excess thatch. So that's scarifying in simple terms, designed to remove thatch. Now let's move on to talking about verticutting. Now in simple terms, this is designed to thin out your lawn, not to remove thatch. It's got the name verticutting because it quite simply vertically cuts the lawn. It's almost like you've got a normal mower blade, but you've got loads of them, and rather than cutting the lawn laterally like this, it's cutting it horizontally through the sward. The main reason why you'll want a verticut is because your lawn may have become too dense, and that can be because of a range of different reasons. One of them being the fact that you've overfed. Let's say you've got a grass type like bent grass or fescue, or a mixture of the two. They multiply using rhizomes and stolons, so the more you feed them and the more you cut them, the thicker they become. And if they become too dense, it can trap too much moisture, leading to things like disease. So by getting on and vertically cutting your lawn, it alleviates that disease pressure, thinning out the sward ever so slightly, and then it thickens back up again. And then you can verticut to thin it again, and by verticutting it, you're encouraging it to thicken back up, so you're kind of playing between those two processes. And that's a similar thing that'll happen on golf courses across the country. But it's not just bent grasses and fescues that can become too dense. Ryegrass can. Now we've got to remember, with ryegrass, one seed is one plant, so by cutting the grass continuously and feeding it, although it does tiller, it doesn't necessarily thicken up like bent grass would or fescue would. However, if you renovate your lawn in the spring or in the autumn, you might actually overseed slightly too much, which leads to your canopy of your lawn becoming slightly too dense, hence why a verticutter might be a good option at that point to, again, thin out the excess growth. When you verticut your lawn, it enables the air to penetrate through the canopy to get down to the soil, to let the actual lawn breathe. It allows that moisture to be able to be evaporated and escape, because that excess moisture is what's going to cause the disease. And you'll notice that the blades of a verticutter differ slightly to the blades of a scarifier. Firstly, they're much thinner, because the thinner the blade, the cleaner the cut's going to be on your lawn. You don't want to be causing any unnecessary stress when you're cutting it. You'll see as well it's designed in this like ninja style pattern, so like if you're a ninja, you know, it's well up your street. But the reason why it's made like this is because it's got multiple little teeth here, so it's more likely to cut the blade than it is to just drag or scoop like what a scarifier would do. The more teeth it has, the cleaner the cut's going to be. Think of a circular saw when you're cutting a piece of wood. If it's got more teeth, you're going to get a much cleaner cut. And the same thing goes for a verticutter compared with a scarifier, which only has like singular teeth knocking about. This is much more aggressive. This is much more gentle. And when you verticut, like I've already said, it's not there to remove the thatch. It should only be going low enough to cut through the sward, but not low enough to cut through the thatch or any of the soil below. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Every time you scarify your lawn, you're also verticutting your lawn. But every time you verticut, you're not scarifying. Let me explain. Like I said earlier, verticutting just effectively means vertically cutting the lawn. And although these blades are designed on the scarifier to scoop and scrape out any excess thatch that you have, by doing that process, it's also vertically cutting the lawn, cutting through stolons, cutting through rhizomes, cutting through that excess growth, that really dense canopy. It's kind of like a byproduct of just getting down to the thatch. But when you're verticutting, you're never scarifying, because you're not going low enough to remove any thatch. And if you are, then your verticutter's going a little bit too deep. Scarifying is a really aggressive process, which is why it's best saved for times like spring and autumn, where we've got fairly decent temperatures, but we've got a lot of rain as well, a lot of moisture, which is going to help the grasses to recover. It's not really ideal to use this during the summer, because the second you open up the soil, all you're doing is asking for the sun to just bake it to absolute death. And as soon as you start to bake your soil, you need to water more. If you water more, you wash a lot of nutrients out, you've got to feed more, so it's a little bit of a nasty cycle. Whereas with verticutting, this can be done during the summer, because it's not going low enough to expose the soil. It does thin the sward, which will inevitably dry the soil more to some degree, but it can be used throughout the lawn care season. It's just about managing the density, pruning it, like what you would do when you're cutting your lawn laterally with a normal mower. So which of these do you actually need? Then if you had to buy one, which one would you go for? Well, if you could only buy one, it makes sense to just go with the scarifier, because it kind of does two jobs in one. Yeah, you're limited a little bit as to the time of year when you can really use it. You sort of only can use it in the spring and in the autumn, not really in the height of summer. But it is more versatile, because it is cutting through that lateral growth, thinning your sward ever so slightly. And as a verticutter, it's probably more effective in the autumn. And because it is so aggressive, you might only want to use this once a year, twice a year max. And if you do, you might want to overseed, or if you've got a bent fescue lawn like I've got, you might just want to feed it and water it just to make sure the density thickens back up by itself. If you want to verticut your lawn, you've got to ask yourself, why? Is it too dense? Often with a regular homeowner lawn, a verticutter is there to kind of solve a problem you've caused yourself, whether that be from overseeding your lawn too much, whether it be from overfeeding your lawn. It's there to kind of control that density. Just for reference, I saw a video recently on Instagram, I think it was. It was from a groundskeeper from a football stadium, where they'd fed the lawn in excess of 90 times within a calendar year. Because they're feeding so excessively, then they are going to have to verticut, because they're going to get so much excessive growth. If you're feeding your lawn once a month, once every 6 weeks, the likelihood of using this is very, very minimal. And for the price that you pay to get one, it might not really be worth it. However, if you're mad into lawn care, if you're feeding every 2 weeks, if you're feeding every week like an absolute maverick, then it might be something you want to add to your arsenal. But just make sure that when you use it, using it with intentionality, because just like the scarifier, this can cause your lawn to go through a little bit of stress if not used effectively. So hopefully that does clear up any of the confusion between both of these processes. They are quite similar, hence the confusion. You can use this to vertically cut your lawn. If you set it on a high enough setting where it doesn't dig into the thatch or doesn't dig into the soil, then you will verticut your lawn, so you can get away with it with this. But if you want to invest and go mental, then pick yourself one up, because at the end of the day, sometimes it is nice to kind of treat your lawn like it is a sports pitch at times to get looking absolutely boss. Now, if you have found today's video useful or interesting, then consider giving it a like. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Like I said at the start, we've got loads of videos on this channel at the moment about how to manage and maintain a fairly decent lawn, how to take a new build garden that used to just be one continuous slope of clay and transform it into the garden I've got behind me now. Then head over to my channel, check those out, subscribe if you haven't. The links to my Instagram will be in the description below. It's Novice Gardener YT. The TikTok is Novice Gardener Official. And finally, thanks for watching.